Hey, this is Brandon, and thank you for joining us for our podcast, I Married a Narcissist. Thanks, Mom. Jennifer and I will share with you our amazing history and real life experiences with a narcissistic parent and spouse, dysfunctional family members, and covert emotional abuse. We will discuss how it affected me and continues to affect us, and how I recovered from what felt like a desperate situation. We hope this podcast helps you and helps you realize you are not alone. All right, let's get uncomfortable. Cheers, love.
Cheers. I know we always do our cheers to being grateful, but this week we have a specific grateful. We had a week of no reunification therapy with the kids and no supervised visits with the bio mom.
Yes.
For that is a week undisturbed, no behavior outbursts, and it's just peace.
It's the little things, love.
It is little things. So thank you for joining us. Another episode of I Married a Narcissist. Thanks, Mom.
And so we ended our last episode with another epic text exchange with the main flying monkey, Rob, my brother. And I met his hostility with kindness and compassion again.
So it seems you're making him quite uncomfortable.
Yes.
You're definitely not getting back in line. But as we kind of explored a little bit, it seems that he might like his new position with Mom.
Right.
He can rescue, save, solve, and perhaps become the golden child.
Right.
So it seems that, to quote a word that he told you in a prior email, it is mandatory that you get back in line.
That's right. And those are usually words that adults don't say to other adults.
No.
It's mandatory.
Children, maybe.
Yes.
But no.
And you bring up the golden child, and that's another interesting character in this cast, and we need to probably explore that further in future episodes. But I'm realizing everybody has their specific roles to play, and the narcissist surrounds themselves with these key players, or in my case, they're her children. And I was the golden child because I just happened to be more industrious, or I had more well-rounded friends, and she could brag about my accomplishments, and whether that was my studies, my good friends, my sports, or even my career. So that helped her and helped elevate her and her status. So I think I was designated as the golden child. And we can kind of go into that a little bit, maybe in another episode. So
yeah, I think that's probably, from what I've heard about your guys' childhood, you were the one to be bragged about. Rob was a little bit more of the rebel and, perhaps not as scholarly or as you were. But good in sports. You said he was an awesome athlete.
He was incredibly talented, but also drove my dad nuts because he had all this talent.
He's a bit lazy.
Yeah, he just didn't excel.
Yeah.
And kept break the rules all the time. And I know kids just do that, but
of course.
And just didn't ever find, and then did go to school, college, but could barely get passing grades. Then he went abroad to Australia, and then almost got kicked out. And he wasn't going to a very rigorous college,
right?
So so he kind of had that path. So I think I was designated in high school as the golden child, and then continued that just because I had that drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were easy to brag about.
Thank you.
Which I do think is why he's probably, I started exploring this thought after we talked about this next episode, why he's probably our most epic flying monkey. Mm-hmm. Because he has a vested interest in the outcome of this. Because he's he's not giving up. He's gregarious. He is going to keep going at it.
Right.
And I started thinking about why is he so, invested in his position. And, I also realized that there are the other sides of it where they're the well-intended bad advice givers. Mm-hmm. And so we'll talk more about Rob, I don't think he's a well-intended advice giver.
Right.
I think he has intentions outside of it, which is maybe to seek, a move up in the level of the family.
Right.
But in another case in your family, it seems that your dad is probably the most well-intended bad advice giver.
Yeah, I think so.
He sometimes gets involved when he's asked, but I think his intentions are to try to bring peace and make everyone happy and comfortable. And I think he just naturally wants to solve things. And he loves you and Rob, obviously. So I do think he believes at the end of the day he's helping.
I think you're right. And like you said, he doesn't wake up every day and try to terrorize us. But when he gets really uncomfortable, he just naturally wants to solve the issue. Mm-hmm. And that brings us to this text exchange I had with my dad, because we like to share those with you, the audience. And to give you context, Jennifer and I knew that my brother and his wife were going to head down to go see my dad, which is pretty rare occurrence. They don't visit very often. They live in different states and just they're busy. But we had a feeling that the timing of the visit was tactical because I had cut my brother off in terms of communication.
Right.
And so we knew he was going to try to make another attempt to try to pull us back into this dysfunction. And we had a text that Rob was going to go down there and see them. And lo and behold, I'm communicating with my dad just about the vaccine, and he ends with his text with, so his text to me was, I saw your brother and his wife doing well. He wants to talk to you, but doesn't know how. Maybe you could help him? ? Mm-hmm. Then we go on. I discuss the vaccine and some of the symptoms that Jennifer and I had. So then I go into the text and I said, I have tried to talk to Rob, but he keeps just being a messenger for Mom. He hurt my feelings, ignores my boundaries, and his last email was a double down to an insult Jennifer. The text continues, when he was in Sonoma last, I asked him to come visit us and the kids as long as we don't discuss Mom, and he wouldn't do it. I told him I need space for Mom, and so he decides to just forward her emails to me. If he wants to ignore all the past where we got calls from neighbors because she set fires in the driveway or because she had a psychotic episode and decided to break into a home, I am tired of the 10 plus emails in the middle of the night on how I should be so grateful that she gave birth to me or the abusive packages that are left in my car. But I'm not going to pretend my mom is normal or healthy. My brother can write a letter if he wants to say he's sorry and wants to have a relationship. I've never asked him to choose a side, just to have a relationship that doesn't include Mom. My mom is sick. Just so you know, the latest was Mom reported to the police that I stole her car in the middle of the night. Are you kidding me? I'm trying to raise 3 kids. She now has Uncle R texting me at 2 a.m. with cryptic insults. She has the family attorney calling me as well. Frankly, I don't want to discuss anymore with Rob why I need space for Mom and that I have a right to do what is right for my family, when all he's going to do is tell me it's mandatory to have Mom infiltrate my life. She has stalked my kids, stalked me and Jennifer. She has stalked all the kids on the way to school, found Lars, gave him money and her number, and told him not to tell me. The only power I have is that I get to stop or limit communication that is harmful or hurtful. I'm reasonable and a loving person, but I get to have boundaries and do what is best for my family. Until Rob wants to have a relationship that doesn't require me to give up more than I already have for Mom, I'm not sure if I can help him. I made it crystal clear on several occasions that I love him and want to have a relationship with him separate than always talk about Mom and what I should do for her. But he couldn't help himself. I understand the shame and guilt that Mom can create, so I empathize with him. Unfortunately, this feels like another attempt through you. I know you understand Mom and want Rob and I to have a good relationship, and we will. I really need your support and understanding. I'm extremely happy in my life, apart from having an abusive and relentless mom and missing a brother that I thought would understand and support me wanting to be happy. I am saddened that you are involved now. I've been in therapy for 4 years now, twice a month, and doing my best. I love you and sorry you are burdened with this.
Wow. So funny when you read those. Every time I get choked up. It's very thoughtful, explanation to the constant attacks that your dad can't realize are coming to you on the other sides.
Right.
And the doubt that it causes, and the concern, and the stress, and the anxiety. So this is a perfect, well-intended bad advice flying monkey.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad is not trying to hurt you. He's just trying to help, but he doesn't realize, because you all protected everybody, all the stress that's been going on the other side of things.
Right.
No one talked about it. So you literally just pulled the veil off of Oz.
Right.
And we realized for us, after we kept getting all these flying monkeys coming into our world in strange, phone calls and text messages and emails
mm-hmm.
from people you hadn't talked to in 20, 30 years, family members, and all of a sudden they were your best friend.
Right.
And we realized that shame and embarrassment is what the narcissist counts on.
Mm-hmm.
They know you will protect them at all cost. That their behavior is so radical and embarrassing that you think it defines you.
Mm-hmm.
So you wash over it and you move on like nothing happened. And I remember I used to always joke when I'd learn these little things that would come out early, and I'd say, you guys are the nothing to see here family. Move along, nothing to see here.
Right.
And it was just a gloss over really unhealthy behaviors by your mom or your brother, for that matter.
Right.
And it would make you so uncomfortable because this was your life, that you would let's just keep moving.
Right.
But once you realized, and I think that's the help of your therapist too, that you're independent. You're
mm-hmm.
not defined by them or their behavior. And you had to kind of free yourself from the shame of how they behave and I guess your need to solve and fix things too, which is what I notice in your dad.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone chooses to involve themselves by request of your mom or your brother, we now just share the facts.
Right.
And that usually quiets the monkey if it's a well-intended monkey.
Mm-hmm.
And in that we realized we're not only freeing the monkey from their duties once we expose the intent behind, their use, and they've been used by the narcissist for
right.
sure. But once we expose the intent behind any future actions by the monkey, if they continue to involve themselves, once they understand the extreme pattern of abuse that you've had to endure, then they are not well intended.
That's beautiful, yes, and that's a beautiful thing to say, and now that's kind of how we operate, and we've realized that just across the board in abuse that they count on you being embarrassed and shamed and not bringing it out, and that's how they're able to operate right under the shroud of secrecy, because they just know that you're not going to do it. But you help me be brave, and that's where we're able to call it out, and if people are flying monkeys, we're just giving them the whole history.
Well, because they asked for it. They
right.
asked to be a part of your situation, so then you owe them honesty.
Right. And so then they kind of go, whoa.
If they're good,
If they're good, and so, and it feels good because, like you said, we're taking our power back a bit,
mm-hmm.
so that we have some control over. Because everyone says, you don't ever want to, and it's true. I don't think you want to. If you can avoid getting in a transaction with a narcissist, you would like to. But right. I feel like the flying monkeys are they're kind of like the once removed from that, and so we're taking like you said, the curtain away so you can see what Oz is, and hopefully that'll help the situation with the flying monkeys.
And it what it also does is what we realize is sometimes they are not intending to be flying monkeys. Right. They just think they're helping. People are nice and they just want to be helpful.
Like that's what they know.
Right.
So I thought originally, my brother wasn't assured. That was just, this is our family. This is what we do.
Right.
But as we've had so many exchanges, obviously that's dubious, that belief that he's, innocent in this one.
No, once you told him how it has impacted you, which mm-hmm. is separate from how he feels, mm-hmm. the two can coexist. Mm-hmm. They don't have to, cross over. He went into personal attacks, insults, name calling, right. Which tells you how uncomfortable or comfortable he is in his new role. I can't decide.
I know you're exhausted and you're going through the hardest time in your life, but it's ridiculous. And
I think that's why when Out of the Fog probably resonated, right?
Yeah, there's another quote I remember from Out of the Fog.
That's by a book by Dana Morningstar.
Yeah, which I think you mentioned in episode 2.
Right.
And this is an example. This quote is an example of how the bad advice comes, and the bad advice can sometimes be more damaging than actual abuse. But here's a quote from the book. Quote, "You need to have a relationship with your mother, even though she is verbally and emotionally abusive to you and your children. After all, she had a terrible childhood, and she is your mother. She's not getting any younger, you know." Quote.
Wow.
I mean, that is just...
That Rob said the same thing.
I know. It's crazy. I mean, it's actually uncanny to most of the responses I get from my brother. And actually, if I didn't know any better and actually thought my brother was motivated enough to actually crack a book, I would have thought he read it.
Right.
But
no.
And he's trying to employ that strategy. But when I read that, I'm like, holy moly! Like, she had that quote in the book.
Yeah.
I'm going, I've received almost that exact email or text from my brother.
Yeah.
You know, it was not she's not getting younger. It was she wants to see her grandkids. What else do grandmothers have to do in this life except hang out with their grandkids? So
right. She's your mom.
She's your mom. You have to do it. It's mandatory. So this book was good. It's great, actually. And it's books like this and therapy that help you realize you're not alone and you're not crazy. And books like this is important for self-care, for sure. There's another quote I like, and it's not in the book. And it says, quote, "We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to make room for the life that is waiting for us." It's by Joseph Campy.
I love that.
It's a great quote, and it's simple. It's easy to remember. This is something that's critical to releasing yourself from your dysfunctional family and abusive their behavior and your past, because it's tough to look back. And the healthier you get, sometimes it's easier to beat yourself up because you have different lenses and you're looking back and go, gosh, you know, I can see that now. Why wasn't I on top of it then? And life is just a series of decisions. And I think all you can do for those out there is analyze your decisions in the past and examine how and why you did what you did. Right. Learn from them. And then you got to move on and forgive yourself. And because if you were healthy and you had healthy people around you, you wouldn't have made those decisions. And as you've taught me, is that family is not a death sentence, no matter what they tell you.
Right.
And
you didn't commit a crime.
Exactly. And just because they're family, and that's like them using, you know, your aunt fell down and she can't get up. I haven't seen my aunt in 25 years.
I know.
You know, she can't tell you my kids' names, how old they are, where I'm living. Mm-hmm. So people fall down all the time. Mm-hmm. But just because they're family, I'm supposed to, okay, I'm going to call and find out how they're doing. But you're right. I mean, and just because they have technically the same, you know, lineage doesn't mean that you got to give up everything for them. And like you said, it's not it's definitely not a death sentence. And
but you know what I was going to say on the other side of that, the things that you've done. So to give our audience a little bit of, I mean, this has been several years of you setting up slow boundaries,
right?
And then her and Rob breaking them over and over and over and over again. Then you try again, and then you try to let them back in again, and then they break it again. So this is a long process. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't even happen in a year's time. Sometimes it takes multiple years of you finally deciding, no matter what boundary you put in front of you, they don't care. They made you a certain way. They need you back in line. You are there to serve her. She's made that. Mm-hmm. I remember one text exchange. She wanted to be with you that day again because she only gets 30 to 40 minutes of time with you every day, and she was very unhappy with that. And you said, it would be helpful is if you take the kids to get haircuts. And she actually replied back, I'm not trying to be helpful.
Yeah, that was the most honest she'd been. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, she doesn't want it. She wants to be your spouse. She doesn't want to help you. Absolutely.
And that goes into the covert incest and covert emotional abuse that, at least in my specific case, that was, right. It's very apparent. And we can get in that too, but.
And you'll get into that later about the fact that, she's never had another relationship again since divorcing your dad.
Yeah, so 30, 35 years, I've lost count. But that's saying something.
It is.
Not a partner, not a boyfriend. Just nobody. And she would say, and this ties into the emotional incest, is I've never found anyone like your dad. And then she would tie it in, nobody even like your brother or you. And I'm like, oh gosh, like, are you kidding me? So family's not a death sentence. You deserve kind people in your life. And they exist, and they're out there. I promise you. Thank you, Lovey.
You're welcome, baby. It's easy.
And so I think it's important, once you do get on the road of recovery, to remind yourself and let yourself off the hook about what I was talking about earlier about certain decisions you made and the outcomes because of those decisions. So it's really easy to look back and beat yourself up for not making better decisions, and that can kind of keep it going. And I just think you guys need to let yourself off the hook for that. Because like I said, if you were in a healthy environment, you wouldn't have made the decisions you made. In my case, I was raised by a grandiose narcissist where her full-time job was to learn my vulnerabilities and exploit them to her benefit. And I'm going to give you a brief definition of grandiose narcissist. We're not therapists. And we just do a lot of research from those who are experts and therapists. And there are two types of narcissists, vulnerable and a grandiose. And my mom was definitely the grandiose. And the definition is, it's the extroversion, overt attention seeking, and grandiosity. And then the vulnerable demonstrates a quieter, more introverted presentation in avoidance and modesty. And there is another spectrum of malignant narcissists, which comes with antisocial personality disorder. And these type of people have the potential to destroy families, communities, nations, and even work environments. And it comes with a hybrid of narcissistic and antisocial personality disorder. And this is according to the Psychology Today article that we're reading. And my mom probably is the malignant narcissist. Mm-hmm. She probably does. And they'll never get diagnosed. That's why it's tough. They'll never go in and get help because they think they're perfect and nothing's wrong with them.
Nothing's ever their responsibility.
Right. And the only time they'd ever go in there is to manipulate the therapist because they think they're so smart, or just to do it long enough to rope you back in.
Or in the bio moms, to do it long enough to get...
to prove to the court that you're making an effort so that you get unsupervised time.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's always an intent. It's never for the conscious and seeking and reflective nature that therapy requires if you actually do it well intended.
Yeah. You got to really want to get help and be better. And they don't. Yeah. And, talking about grandiose, my mom, just to give you the audience a couple examples of what that... So
grandiose.
Yeah, the grandiose. She would, she always claims she's Mensa, which you may or may not. That's just, you got to have a certain IQ to be part of this club. She would, tout that a lot. She'd always throw out her grade point averages at these prestigious schools. Of course, then she picks like I said, a peripheral sort of religion that really fit her narrative. It was, this was her calling. Kids choose their mom, that sort of thing, and kind of elevated her, and she believed it. And then she would use her money to manipulate other people and raise her status. And it could be setting up foundations, giving money to charities, just to get these accolades from people around her. And it's two parts. She gets credit for doing it, and then she gets to say, "See how generous I am?
Right.
I'm kind." look at me giving this money away. Look at all the things I'm helping. And you and I know, we're just like, whatever, right? I mean, we know why you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And then she even has the grandiosity to say that I chose her as my mom. And then she also reminds my brother all the time that she saved him from that accident, and she elevates herself. And then the only other story that just kind of sticks in my mind about the grandiosity is that when Jennifer and I, or when you and I were just...
was it our first Thanksgiving?
It was our first Thanksgiving. And we'd kind of put up those boundaries with my mom. And, I think I told her and my brother that I was going to spend it with your family because I wanted to actually have a good one. And she wrote a letter to you. Right. And you'd met her twice.
Yeah.
And it's probably twice too many, but you met her twice. She actually wrote you a letter going to tell you how it is.
Right.
She wrote me a letter, and that's not a shocker. I get them all the time. I burn mine because I didn't want to see it. But I think
I just ripped it up. Yeah. I obviously had already been on the receiving end of listening and hearing the abuse to you, reading her 10 plus emails a night, her text exchange abuses before you blocked her, then your brother's abuse. So when I saw that and saw the return address, I just ripped it up. I just thought, there's nothing in here that I need in my life. It's not going to bring me any joy. It might bring me some sadness. So what is the actual point of opening it? I didn't ask for it. She doesn't have the ability to cross over my boundaries. I didn't choose her. So I just ripped it up.
Yeah, and it's a perfect, thing to do for her because we're about to have Thanksgiving. That's the last thing we need. Which is her intent too, right?
Yes, of course.
But I just can't, looking back, to think that she had the audacity and that grandiose entitlement that she thought she could write you a letter, not thinking that, you've got a son and a dad and a mom and a brother and
and a career
and that's what you who just decides they're going to go write a letter
to tell me how it is.
And she that is just a perfect example, and that's crazy town.
Well, that it went along perfectly with how she kept walking past my house at certain times of the hour. Where you and I, at the end of the day, would go to the house, and we were living apart still, and she would walk right in front of my house. There's no reason to walk in front of my home at all. And so she kept doing that to make her presence known and make us feel uncomfortable, and it worked every time. I was uncomfortable.
Right, that's hoovering, right?
That's hoovering. That's right.
And we probably need to go into that too.
Yeah. This is why I think when we read Out of the Fog, we related to it in so many ways. We were shocked. It was almost like it was written about our life. And it made you and I feel less alone. And it also made us realize that, sometimes there isn't a solution. It's sad and it's tragic, but you can't keep setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm.
Nice.
Thank you. At 70 years old, you aren't changing somebody. It's impossible when they won't even make the first step. And they never will make the first step because they didn't cause this. You did. And I think in all your text exchange with your mom, it's no, you did this. You set up boundaries you've never had before. And so this book reminded us that these narcissists know what they're doing. They wake up every day and they plan what they're going to do to you today. They aren't an untrained puppy.
Right.
So stop letting them off the hook like they just can't help themselves.
Right.
They can. And especially if your mom is Mensa.
Good point.
She should definitely be able to help herself.
You're right.
But what we keep forgetting is that, people like your mom and ex-wife, they are not going to seek help. Nothing's ever their fault. And then on the flip side of their personality disorders, they actually enjoy the chaos and the stress. It is their feed.
Right.
I have seen your mom's eyes light up when you told her of a court date. She would get a twinkle in her eye, and it made me so uncomfortable. And so for them, every situation that they create, from stolen cars to abusing children or animals for that matter, it's a win-win for them because it's a story. And they take these little slights and they spin them around, and they're the victim in it. Mm-hmm. And they can tell anyone who will listen.
Right. And, well, it brings up a point, because I think my mom, when I was going through hell with the divorce and getting, overnight custody, full custody of the kids, and, giving up the career and all that, it created such an opportunity for her. Mm-hmm. It's like, aha, right. He's going to need my help. So, she had this, currency that she could use. Like, see, I've come in, I've helped you, I did this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm buried here. Like, right. I'm just waving the white flag, but it's creepy because they see that as an opportunity. Not like she feels bad for me. It's like, aha, he's vulnerable, right?
No. Yeah, nothing came without a price.
No. And, knowing what I now know, I would have been better off not getting any help. No,
you had too much for one person to bear.
Yeah, that's how it felt, for sure.
And just so you know, on the healthy side of things, because we always talk about, using me as a healthy compass.
Right.
My mom has helped me and rescued me plenty of times in my life, and not once has she ever held it over me.
Right.
I actually don't even hear about it again.
Well, yeah, I mean, your family is that gauge, mm-hmm. And so we've talked about the Out of the Fog, which obviously we're fans of. And as we discussed in the prior episodes, it means fear, obligation, and guilt. Back on track here. This is a phrase that was coined by Susan Ford and Donna Fraser, and it's one of the most accurate descriptions I've heard. You literally feel like you are in a fog when you're in this situation. Some of you are probably still in that, and it feels like you're living in an alternate universe, and you really do not know what is healthy or unhealthy. And sometimes you're literally, I remember I just felt like I was literally just trying to get to noon so I could get to 5 p.m. so that I could get to bedtime.
Wow.
And some days it felt like I was in a swamp breathing through a straw, and other days it just felt like I was in tumble dry setting in a dryer. I mean, it's constant chaos, and they intentionally do that, mm-hmm. right? So you don't ever have a moment to just gather your thoughts and really analyze, question like, what the heck's going on? And I remember when I did call my dad, and I was like, I'm struggling.
Right.
And he said, can you do what you're doing right now for another 5 years? And my answer was absolutely not.
That's such a great question, because it cuts through all the BS.
I said, there's no way I could survive this 5 years. I cannot. I mental breakdown or physical breakdown, no way. I can do anything for a day. We all can. Mm-hmm. But that, when he put it in that context, I was just like, 5 years.
Well, no, even physically, it was taking a toll on you.
I went to the doctor for chest pains, and and I was just, I don't know if that was just manifesting itself so that I would actually go and but yeah, it was. But that was great. So, if you're out there and you're struggling, ask yourself that question. Can you do what you're doing for 5-10 years? And if the answer is no, then something has to change. Right. So that was great advice from my dad. And, just living with a narcissist every day brings something new. And a direct quote from Out of the Fog that resonated with me is, quote, "The first step to getting out of the fog, and perhaps the easiest place to start, is to open up on the discussion of what is normal and what is problematic. However, the challenge is that for the vast majority of people, what's problematic is normal."
Right. And that kind of goes back to there's nothing to see here, family, because you guys had created this abnormal normal.
Right.
This alternate universe of you guys were special, and that's just how you did things. So you didn't even know it was problematic.
Right. No, it's true. And that's why I used, our relationship and you as a healthy compass. And I used your family and how they interacted as a healthy meter. I remember when I would get some crazy antic or an email or a phone call, I would change the cast of characters to you in my mind, and it became very clear that no one in your family would do this to you, nor would it be tolerated, and you wouldn't do it to your son.
Right.
And it's just, I try to picture you sending 15 texts or emails to your son and telling him he's pathetic on one hand, and then I love you and wish you nothing but light. It's so preposterous. And so then I get to step back and go, okay, this is not normal.
Right. The
situation I grew up in, and if I end up falling back into, is not normal, right? Back then, right? And so it's obviously crystal clear now, but that was really helpful for me to look at and obviously and I think it's hard probably for some people in the audience, because when you come from such a dysfunctional family, it's really hard to trust.
Oh, right.
So, but you guys, if you find somebody who's good and kind is so important. And
you can't make someone kind.
You can't make somebody kind. And so when you find, you just kind of have to, you have faith that this person is kind. And once you relinquish that, it's really easy to look and go, oh my gosh, like there is a whole group of people out there that aren't abusive and toxic and spend all day trying to manipulate you. But yeah,
that is something too. I don't remember which of the books or podcasts we've listened to, but it talked about how important it was during your healing stages to surround yourself with good, healthy people. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when you end up with the narcissist for so long, people end up distancing themselves from you, mm-hmm. healthy people, because your relationship is so unhealthy, it makes healthy people uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So you probably ended up with a pretty unhealthy group of people around you.
Oh, yeah.
Because anybody of certain life boundaries and health and emotional intelligence would not want to be around a narcissist that required a microphone every time you guys went to dinner or lunch.
True. Or anybody who's a victim of that, because it's just like, whoa, like too much.
Yeah, because you said she would share ridiculous stories all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's, I think also, you gravitate, if you're in a very unhealthy situation, you almost gravitate to other people that are in unhealthy.
That's true.
Because then yours isn't so crazy,
glaring,
and so it's probably, both of the, it's probably
very true.
Yeah, I think both of those are going on. People that are healthy are going, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to be around them.
I'll see you when you're out, but I'm gonna bypass the whole family situation.
Exactly. And then you find people that are in a similar situation, and they go, hey, this is kind of the abnormal club.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, I think we've probably finished that bottle, love.
Okay.
And why don't you talk about what we're going to go into next week? Because, of course, we have tons more to share with our amazing audience.
So next week we'll share, or next podcast, we'll share another real text or email. And I think we're going to discuss how enmeshment occurs and, and how parents don't move on after divorce and red flags to look for in a mate that is mentally not there, or narcissistic or antisocial. But it's hard until you've diagnosed them. But in my case, it was a narcissist for sure, and so we'll start to look at some of those red flags. So people out there can,
you can identify it.
Yeah.
Just in case you've come from a family of personality disordered parents, or have been in a marriage and you're trying to swim through the waters and date. I think it does help if you learn some healthy red flags and things to question. We can
just share some of the red flags that I personally got to experience and wish I had picked up earlier. And so hopefully that'll help you guys. So thanks for listening to us, and thanks for taking your time to spend this time with us, and we will see you next time.
All right. Cheers.
Okay, cheers.